All right, one more of these. Two more of these. This is a long one. The next one will be short. And then we will... Well, let's do this one first. North America. I understand. Tell me if this is right or wrong. I understand there are different types of Bigfoot in North America. You hear the Florida skunk ape is smaller and darker and leaner and meaner, more vicious and mean. And your West Coast type, like Patty, is bigger and bulkier and maybe more confident, so not so aggressive. And moving up north, I think I hear you have lighter hair, more red, more reddish brown, more tawny, and they come even bigger. Well, I am beginning to wonder if we have something like this here in Japan. You know, Japan it's a narrow, but it's a long, skinny country. From north to south, it's the distance of Paris to Moscow. That's an awfully long way, and it takes in a lot of climates from north to south. Down where I live in Hiroshima, well, it's comparable to Florida in some ways. We have a subtropical climate at sea level. There isn't much sea level. You're pretty soon right in the mountains, but these islands are famous for citrus fruit. Beautiful, beautiful lemons and oranges and things you've never heard of, things I've never heard of. And they keep coming up with new hybrids and new varieties all the time. Inland, up in the mountains, you have real heavy winters, heavy snowfall. So that's different from Florida. But we have found 3 names here for the Hibagon. Hibagon, Hiba monster, monster of Hiba mountain. Enko, a combination of terms for monkey, an invented word. I'm reading it as super monkey. And Kakuzaru, river monkey, because they use the rivers to sneak in and out of human settlements. So generally these names are pointing at an animal nature or animal qualities or beastly, monstery beastliness. Up in Gifu, you remember we found the names Kakuzaru, black monkey, and Kakuen, black beast. So these tie in very nicely with the Hiroshima names. But then we also had Kuronbo, black man, and this is totally out of left field. Satori, consciousness. Well, consciousness is usually attributed to humans, not animals. So, a more nuanced, more divided, or more complex take on the creature. Some recognition of human likeness or human characteristics. Remember Zembe, the woodcutter, befriended one. They had a beautiful friendship. Now it's true that Satori did make some unwanted advances to a lady in the village below, but we only had her side of the story. We don't know what the Satori was doing. We don't know his intentions. If having a crush on a girl, if having an unreturned one-way crush is a crime, then count me guilty on multiple counts. If you think back to high school or junior high school, maybe you might be guilty too. I got a lot of them. I especially think of Glenda and Brenda, the identical twins. I was deeply in love with one or both of them. Well, now, both in Hiroshima and in Gifu, we have abductions of human women, forced marriage in Lucy Thompson's memorable euphemism, and forced reproduction of hybrid offspring. So that is bad. But please remember, bad humans do this too, all the time. You read it in the news, you see it on TV. There are bad people who do this. And I hate to say it, but they do even worse things. Now, the thing about Hibagon is we don't know the rate. The Hibagon criminal rate. Black bears can kill you, and sometimes they do, but the black bear murder rate of humans is low. You still want to be careful around them, but they're not bloodthirsty demons. So with Hibagon, I don't want to understate or overstate how dangerous they are. We don't know yet. I have heard of Bigfoot in North America helping people and rescuing people. And, well, let's get into it. Today we are up in Niigata, way up here. This is an agriculture and mining part of Japan. That's similar to Hiroshima and Gifu. The climate is colder, and there's a lot of rain and snow coming off the Sea of Japan and getting pulled down here, dumped down by these mountains. Now, the term that I knew they had up here for these creatures was Ikemono. But it looks like the more common term is Yamao or Yamaotoko, mountain man. Mountain man. Also, Yamabito, mountain person, mountain people. So, more human-leaning terminology, more human-like descriptions, and human-like behavior. In 1771, a feudal lord, Lord Bankinai, who was also, in his spare time, he was a writer, he wrote about these beings, and he called them Satori, using the same name in Gifu, Satori, consciousness. You remember that Gifu is a crossroads of Japan. It's a choke point. If you're doing any traveling in Japan, and if you're a feudal lord, you have to be traveling. You're going to go through Gifu, and I'm sure that's where Lord Bankinai picked up this name. But he said they lived in his province. They lived around Uonuma-gun. Uonuma-gun. That is a real place. It is way up here, way deep in the mountains. Lord Bankinai said that the Satori here were able to read men's minds and tell their thoughts. So that also fits with what we heard of the Gifu Satori. This is an illustration of the classic Gifu Satori. It's pretty beastly and scary. This is an illustration of Lord Bankinai's Satori. This Satori here, this big guy, he's visiting a human. Now this artist obviously has in mind something much closer to human, but bigger and wilder. But nice. He's got a nice smile on his face, and it looks like he just came here to visit this guy who's making a tub and read his mind. Now, in 1812, Tachibana Konron. Tachibana Konron in his Hoketsu Kidan. Talked about Yamabito, mountain people. In the vicinity of Mount Myoko. The name Myoko means high and mysterious. I think that's a good name for a place for Bigfoot, where they live. And they also lived around Mount Kurohime, Black Princess. This is a very wild, very remote area. And Tachibana said these guys were 180 centimeters tall, so 5'11". Now that would be gigantic beside the Japanese peasants of that time. And you know what? That is tall compared with me. I would be looking up to speak to a guy who's 5'11". Now, Tachibana wrote that they looked quite human, except, listen to this, except for the red hair on their bodies. You know, Tachibana, living up here, and the other people living up here, they never saw a foreigner. They never saw a redhead. If you live down south, say down in Kyushu, in some of these ports down here, it's possible that you might one day have seen a Russian or an American or a British sailor, and he might have had red hair. That's possible. Not up here in Niigata. Red hair on their bodies, nice detail, and gray skin. Maybe somebody could tell me, you know, the northern Sasquatch who have red hair. I would like to know if they have gray skin. Tachibana says that they had voices like cows, and they could understand human language, but they couldn't speak. I think I'm speaking for Tachibana now, but I think what he means is they could understand the human Japanese language, but they could not speak Japanese. I've been in that position myself. Now he says, this is weird and fascinating. He says that they were naked except for leaves which they wore around their waists. Yeah. Now he goes on, he says someone one day taught one of these things how to wear animal skins instead of leaves. Yes, and the next day, this mountain man, I guess with a big old smile on his face, the next day he comes back and he's showing up in an apron he's made out of freshly killed deer skin. I'm just reporting this, folks. I'm not making this up. Now here's a painting of one of these fellows, these Yamabito, and he's visiting some human friends. They have him sitting over there, or maybe he's shy, maybe he's just sitting a little bit away from them. But it looks like they've invited him into their house, and they don't look alarmed. In 1837, Bokushi Suzuki, I love this guy, Bokushi Suzuki, in his Hokuetsu Seppu, he tells us that mountain men, you should call them, he prescribes that we call them Ikemono or Iju, foreign hairy beast, or I think you could probably say hairy beastly foreigner. I love this name because it pulls together the animal, beastly, hairy, and the human, foreigner qualities. You don't call an animal a foreigner. That's a word reserved for strangers, strange humans from a different country. And maybe I feel some solidarity because I am also a hairy, beastly foreigner, like this guy and this guy. Now, Mr. Suzuki describes these hairy, beastly foreigners in this way. He says they're similar to a monkey, but absolutely not a monkey. Mr. Suzuki seems to be anticipating Dr. Izaizumi and slapping him a good one, slapping him on the head, and good for Mr. Suzuki. So similar to a monkey, but absolutely not a monkey. People are not confusing these things for monkeys. With long hair on the head, but half length on the body. Say that again. Long hair on the head, but half length hair on the body. Taller than a normal person. But one more time, a face that is not red like a monkey. And he slaps Dr. Izaizumi again. Well, then he tells us a story about a man named Takesuke. Takesuke was a porter. He lived in the village of Horiuchi in Uonuma-gun. Hold on. That's where Lord Bankinai told us the Satori lived. There's a confirmation. Now, Takesuke, his job was, he was a porter. He carried things for people. And one day, someone paid him to take some heavy baggage over a mountain from Horiuchi village to Iketani. So he was going on his way. He was up in the mountain, and Takesuke ran into one of these Ikemono, hairy, beastly foreigners. And there was some interaction between them, and Takesuke ended up sharing his lunch, which was grilled rice. He gave some of his grilled rice to this fellow. Now, try to put yourself in the hairy, beastly foreigner's shoes. He didn't have shoes, but you know what I mean. Try to put yourself in his headspace. What he does next, he picks up Takesuke's heavy baggage and he carries it for him. He carries it. Takesuke follows him. And this hairy, beastly foreigner carries the heavy baggage all the way to Iketani village, almost. Just before the village, he puts the stuff down. And I don't know if he says goodbye or not. I don't know if he gives a little Japanese bow, but he runs away quickly up the mountain. So he shared the rice, carried the baggage almost all the way, and then ran away. Here he is in this picture carrying the baggage. This artist clearly has something more beastly in mind, but please remember, none of these artists was an eyewitness, and of course, neither was I. Now we are up north of Niigata in Aomori and Akita. They called these people mountain men, mountain people, or big people. Now they came down from the mountains sometimes, these big people. And, I love this. They are described as being as big around as sumo wrestlers, but much taller. What a great Japanese description. Now, around Hirosaki City, there was a farmer named Yajuro, and he befriended one of these big people, these big men, similar to Zembe and his situation. And this big man, this big mountain man, helped him on the farm, doing heavy labor. Things were going well. Mrs. Yajuro and the neighbors all thought this was wonderful. Until one day, Farmer Yajuro disappeared. He just vanished without a trace. And then his wife and the neighbors, they changed their minds about these big mountain people. And they changed the name of the place to Onizawa. Oni is usually translated devil or demon. We will get into Oni later on. Nearby in Tsugaru, where the beautiful Tsugaru strain of kokeshi dolls comes from, there was a similar story of a mountain man who helped harvest bark from trees. They had a little business up there where they were peeling bark from trees, and this big mountain man, being big and strong and tall, yeah, he would have been very helpful peeling bark off trees. Now they paid him. They paid him in cigarettes. I guess he liked to smoke, this big mountain man. All right, now we are down in Kanagawa, south of Niigata, just west of Tokyo. Tsumura Soan, born 1736, wrote about big, naked mountain men, naked except for, guess what? Leaves around their private parts. These big naked mountain men lived in a village in the mountains where they caught fish and carried the fish down to the human habitations, and they traded fish for rice with the local people. Now, no one was ever able to find out where they lived exactly because they were way, way back in the mountains where nobody was able to go. This was impenetrable terrain by humans. The lord of this area, the lord of Odawara Castle, in probably, I think this is a world's first, he issued a protective decree. This was a law forbidding anyone from shooting at these things, these beings, these mountain men, on the grounds that they were not harming humans, so no one should harm them. Okay, the two sources for that are Katsumi Tada and the Ehon Hyakku Monogatari. So, north of Gifu, we have generally a more positive, generally more human-like reports. Also, these northern mountain people are said, well, one person says they have racial characteristics of Caucasians, not Asians. That's very interesting. That's according to Ko Nakamura in his provocatively titled Blonde Blue-Eyed Demons by JDC Publishing, who, I don't know if they... I never met the man. I have a lot more Japanese names for these creatures, these beings, in my book. We'll learn some more by and by. These videos just supplement the book, and if you want to get the information all at once, well, you can buy the book. That would make me very happy. Now, we've made the case, I think, that there are traces of Bigfoot all over Japan, but unquestionably, the three strongest mountain strongholds, both historically and now, seem to be Hiroshima and surrounding region, especially Yamaguchi and Ehime. Gifu and that surrounding region, and Niigata and that surrounding region, especially Gunma. And a special case, Nara. And I will just invite here, I will invite anyone, if you live in any of those areas, whether you are Japanese or a hairy, beastly foreigner, if you are interested in this topic, please get a hold of me. Maybe we could cooperate. Maybe we could share knowledge. Maybe we could take a field trip together and, well, maybe we could advance our knowledge and understanding of these Hibagon Satori Yamabito people or creatures. Now, in the next video, I'm going to tell you about Kurote. Kurote was the name. It's a proper name. It was given to one particular Hibagon creature who did something very, very naughty, and he paid for it too. Boy, oh boy, did he pay for it. After that, God willing, I will tell you why a second edition of my book became suddenly very urgent, and we will look at the modern, I mean now, right now, going on right now, evidence of Hibagon activity, bad activity. I'm Kyle. I'm from Hibagon, Japanese Bigfoot. This is the video supplement. The two go together like a crisp Macintosh apple and blue Stilton cheese. One of my favorite combinations. These videos are good because we can work in current events and new information. And I'm really enjoying some of the talks that we're having in the comments. Of course, the book is good too, because it doubles as a pot holder. All right, I'll see you again real soon with Kurote. Meanwhile, I think you should call up your old high school crush and tell her about this channel. I think she'd appreciate that. Okay, bye-bye.